The crowd's roar hit like a physical force, washing over Mira in waves of bloodlust and greed. She stood center arena, silver chains biting into her wrists, the metal burning through skin that had long since scarred over from years of the same restraints. The sand beneath her bare feet was dark with old blood, some of it hers, most of it belonging to the 72 opponents she'd killed in this exact spot. Across from her, a boy circled with the frantic energy of prey that knew it was already dead. Mira recognized him. Cell 47, 3 doors down from hers. He'd shared his water ration with her once, back when she was 12 and stupid enough to still show weakness. That was 8 years ago. Now he was 19, all lean muscle and desperation, and Victor Constantine's rules were absolute. Only one leaves the arena alive. "Fight!" the handler's voice cracked through the speaker system. Bored and clinical, the boy lunged first. Mira's body responded. Before her mind engaged, 15 years of brutal conditioning made her movements automatic. She sidestepped, her hand snapping out to catch his wrist mid-swing. The bones there were thin, weakened by the same silver-laced gruel they all ate to keep their wolves suppressed. She could break him easily. The crowd was chanting now. "Scarlet Fang! Scarlet Fang!" They'd given her that name after her 30th kill, when she'd torn out an opponent's throat with her teeth, because the handlers had taken her claws as punishment for talking back. The boy's eyes met hers, terrified, pleading. Mira felt nothing. She'd learned to feel nothing the night they made her kill her best friend. In this same arena. That girl's name had been Sophie. She'd been 13. Mira had been 14, and she'd done what she always did. She survived. The boy made a sound, half sob, half growl, and tried to wrench free. Mira's grip tightened. Her hybrid prime abilities stirred beneath her skin. That secret gift she'd hidden from the handlers since she first discovered it at 16. Every opponent she killed left an imprint, a fragment of their power that her body absorbed and integrated like stolen starlight. Speed from a vampire champion, strength from lichen blood, regeneration from a dozen sources. She was a walking graveyard of the defeated, and she'd been gathering power for this exact purpose. "I'm sorry," she whispered, too quiet for the microphones to catch. Then she moved. It was over in seconds. Merciful. At least. Quick. The crowd erupted in approval while Mira stood over the body, blood cooling on her hands, her wolf howling somewhere deep inside the prison of her own mind. The handlers had suppressed it with silver and wolfsbane for so long she barely remembered what it felt like to shift. But she remembered her mother's scream. 10 years old, running through burning trees, smoke in her lungs and terror in her throat. Her mother shoving her toward the river. "Run, baby. Don't look back. Don't ever—" The silver net fell like judgment from above. The last thing she saw was her mother's wolf form leaping at the hunters, buying seconds Mira couldn't use. The last thing she heard was the gunshot. "Excellent performance, number 7. Victor's voice pulled her back to the present. He stood in his luxury box, all-expensive suit and cold satisfaction, looking at her the way someone might admire a prized hunting dog. Around him, wealthy alphas and criminal underlords nursed cocktails and compared betting slips. To them, this was entertainment. To Mira, this was Tuesday. The handlers dragged the body away while Mira stood motionless, waiting for permission to return to her cage. The silver chains heated against her skin, a reminder that even as the Scarlet Fang, she was still property. Still merchandise, still enslaved. Victor descended from his box with the practiced grace of a man who'd never known a cage. He circled her slowly, and Mira kept her eyes down, her posture submissive. 15 years had taught her which battles to fight and which to survive. "You've done well," he said, his accent thick with Eastern European satisfaction. 73 victories. Not a single loss. My investors are very impressed. Mira said nothing. Speaking without permission earned silver whips. "I have exciting news." Victor's hand touched her chin, forcing her head up. His fingers were soft, manicured. She imagined tearing them off one by one. "In 3 days, we host the Blood Moon tournament. Champions from all my facilities will compete. And you, my dear Scarlet Fang, will be the star attraction." The crowd was dispersing now, their bloodlust sated for the evening. Mira caught fragments of conversation, bets being settled, new wagers being placed, the casual cruelty of people who'd never known hunger or chains. The winner, Victor continued, his smile sharp as broken glass, earns their freedom. Lies. Mira had seen 5 other champions win their freedom over the years. She'd watched them get sold to the highest bidder. Their supposed liberation just another transaction. But she kept her face carefully blank, her voice soft and hopeful when she responded, "Thank you, Master." The word tasted like poison, but it kept her alive. Victor patted her cheek like she was a good dog and dismissed her with a wave. The handlers moved in, unlocking her wrist chains only to replace them with the heavier restraints, used for transport back to the cells. As they led her through the underground corridors, Mira's mind was already working. 3 days. The Blood Moon tournament would bring every major player in Victor's network to the pits. Every corrupt alpha who funded this nightmare, every handler who'd beaten children into weapons, every investor who profited from trafficking wolf cubs. They'd all be here, vulnerable, gathered in one location. Perfect. Her cell was 8 feet by 6 feet, carved from stone, with a drain in the corner and a bucket for water. The handlers shoved her inside and locked the reinforced door. Mira waited until their footsteps faded before moving to the back wall. There, hidden beneath centuries of grime, were tally marks. 15 years, 5 months, 12 days. Each mark carved with a claw she'd sharpened against stone. Each one a promise to herself. Survive, get stronger, make them pay. Her fingers traced the marks while her hybrid prime abilities hummed beneath her skin. She could feel the power she'd accumulated, 73. Fragments of strength, speed, skill, enough to break these chains, enough to tear through the handlers, enough to kill Victor and burn the pits to ash. Almost enough. She needed 3 more days. Mira settled against the cold stone wall and closed her eyes. The phantom sensation of her mother's hand in her hair haunted her, the last gentle touch she remembered, before violence became her entire world. Somewhere above, in the luxury levels, Victor was already planning her sale. Somewhere below, in the kennels, new children were crying themselves to sleep. And somewhere deep inside Mira's chest, in the place where her wolf had been caged for 15 years, something was beginning to wake up. She could feel it, stirring, patient, predatory, waiting for the right moment to explode into violent, glorious freedom. 3 days, she thought. Then we burn it all down. The pits fell silent as night deepened. The only sound, the distant drip of water and the occasional whimper from nearby cells. Mira's breathing evened out, her body conserving energy, her mind already planning. She didn't know that 2 alphas had just purchased VIP access to the Blood Moon tournament. Didn't know that twin flames were hunting the same monster she was. Didn't know that in 3 days, her entire world would shatter and reform into something she'd stopped letting herself imagine. Hope. But for now, in the darkness of her cell, Mira was still just number 7. Still the Scarlet Fang. Still the weapon. Victor Constantin had spent 15 years forging. He'd done his job well. She was sharp, deadly, perfectly honed for violence. He just made one crucial mistake. He never asked what she'd do once she chose her own target. The answer was coming. In 3 days, the Blood Moon would rise over the pits, and the Scarlet Fang would finally bite the hand that fed her. The scent hit Mira before she saw them, ice and pine and something wild that made her suppressed wolf lift its head. For the first time in years, she was being marched through the upper corridors toward the training pits when it happened, that smell cutting through 15 years of numbness like a blade through silk. Her step faltered. The handler's grip on her arm tightened, silver-laced gloves burning through her skin. "Move, 7!" But Mira's entire body had gone rigid, every instinct screaming that something fundamental had just shifted in her world. Her wolf, caged and silent for so long, was suddenly clawing at her insides, desperate and confused and awake. What the hell? They rounded the corner into the observation gallery, where wealthy visitors could watch training sessions before the tournament. The space reeked of expensive cologne and entitled cruelty, Alphas who came to window shop for living weapons. Then Mira saw them and her heart stopped. Two men stood at the reinforced glass, and men felt inadequate. They were forces of nature barely contained in human skin. Identical, tall and powerfully built with dark hair and features carved from stone. But their eyes were what caught her. Silver, not gray, not pale blue. Actual molten silver, and they were both staring directly at her. The mate bond slammed into Mira like a physical blow. Not one bond, two. Her knees buckled. The handler caught her roughly, cursing. "What's wrong with you?" "Everything. Nothing. The entire world had just tilted sideways because these two strangers, these alphas who smelled like winter storms and safety, were looking at her. Like she was something precious instead of merchandise." The one on the left went absolutely still, his control so perfect it was inhuman. The one on the right's hands clenched into fists, claws erupting before he forced them back. They felt it too. "Keep moving," the handler snarled, dragging Mira forward. She forced her legs to work, forced her expression back to blank compliance, but her wolf was howling. 15 years of silver and suppression, and now it wanted out. Wanted to run to those two males. Wanted to... No, this was wrong, dangerous. The mate bond was weakness, and weakness got you killed in the pits. Mira kept her eyes down and let herself be led away, but she could feel their gazes tracking her every step, could feel something thrumming between them like a living thing, pulling tighter with every foot of distance. In Victor's luxury office, Kain Blackwood watched the female disappear through a doorway and had to physically restrain his brother from going after her. "Easy," he murmured, his own control hanging by a thread. "Easy?" Kane's voice was gravel and fury. "That's our mate, Kain. Our mate. And she's got silver burns on her wrists and terror in her eyes and—" "I know." Kane's hand tightened on his brother's shoulder. "But we do this smart or we get her killed." They'd been hunting Victor Constantine for 2 years, dismantling his trafficking network piece by piece. This facility, the pits, was his crown jewel. The place where he trained stolen wolf children into weapons for sale. Kain and Kane had paid a fortune for VIP access to the Blood Moon tournament, planning to gather intelligence for a coordinated strike. They hadn't expected to find their mate. 80 years they'd searched. 80 years of failed attempts. Females who couldn't handle the intensity of bonding with twin alphas simultaneously, who were overwhelmed by their combined dominance, who broke under the psychic weight of it. They'd stopped hoping years ago, and now she was here, chained and scarred and looking at them like they were just another threat. "We buy her," Kain said flatly. "Whatever it costs." Agreed. Kane's mind was already working through logistics. But carefully. Victor's paranoid. "If we seem too eager..." "Gentlemen?" Victor's voice oozed false warmth as he entered with 2 bodyguards. "I see you've spotted my Scarlet Fang. Beautiful, isn't she? And deadly. 73 victories, undefeated champion." Kain turned, his expression perfectly neutral. "Impressive statistics. What's her specialty?" "Adaptation. She learns from every opponent, incorporates their techniques. It's quite remarkable." Victor moved to his desk, pouring amber liquid into crystal glasses. "She'll be competing in the tournament, of course. I expect her to win." "And then?" Kane's tone was casual, but Kain felt his brother's rage through their twins' bond. "Then she'll be available for purchase. I have several interested parties already, but for the right price," Victor smiled. "Everything is negotiable." The way he talked about her, like livestock, like property, made Kane's wolf snarl beneath his skin. Beside him, Kain was vibrating with barely leashed violence. "We'd like a private consultation," Kain said smoothly, "to assess her capabilities before the tournament." Victor's eyes narrowed slightly. "That's unusual." "We're prepared to pay unusually well." Kain named a sum that made even Victor's practiced composure crack. "Grade 1. It always did." 1 hour, Victor agreed. "Consultation room 3. I'll have her brought up." His smile turned sharp. "But gentlemen, she's valuable merchandise. Damage her, and the price increases significantly." Mira was back in her cell when they came for her. "Up, 7, you've got a consultation." Her stomach dropped. She knew what consultations meant. Potential buyers testing the merchandise. She'd endured 3 before, each one degrading and painful, each one teaching her to disappear inside her own head while her body endured whatever they wanted. But this time, as the handlers led her through the corridors, her wolf was still awake, still clawing, still pulling toward that scent of ice and pine. The consultation room was designed for exactly one purpose. Reinforced walls, cameras in every corner, a table with restraint points. Mira entered with her head down, her body language submissive, prepared for whatever came next. Then she smelled them again, and her carefully constructed walls started cracking. The twin alphas stood on opposite sides of the room, and the moment the door closed behind the handlers, something shifted. The one on the left, the controlled one, immediately moved toward her. Mira flinched back instinctively. He stopped, raised his hand slowly, then did something that shattered her completely. He removed his jacket and held it out. "You're cold," he said quietly. "And barely clothed, please take it." Mira stared at the offered jacket like it was a weapon. "Kindness was how they broke you. A kindness made you hope, and hope made you weak." "We're not going to hurt you," the other one said, his voice rougher, raw with emotion. "We felt it too, the bond. You're our mate." The word hit like a blow. Mate? The thing she'd stopped letting herself dream about the day they put a collar on her at age 10. "My name is Kain," the controlled one said. "This is my brother, Kain. I know who you are." Mira's voice came out hoarse from disuse. Speaking without permission was dangerous, but something about them made her brave. Stupid. The Blackwood twins. "You've destroyed 3 trafficking rings in 2 years." Kain's eyes widened slightly. Kain smiled, fierce and proud. "You keep track," Kain said. "Good. Then you know we're not here to buy you. We're here to burn this place to the ground." Mira's heart was hammering. This was a test, had to be. Victor testing her loyalty, seeing if she'd break. But her wolf was screaming truth, truth, truth. And the mate bond was pulling so hard it physically hurt. "You can't," she whispered. "There are children. 73 in the lower levels. If you move too soon, Victor will kill them all." Both twins went absolutely still. "You know where they're kept?" Kain's voice was carefully controlled. Mira nodded slowly. "I know everything. Guard rotations, security systems, where Victor keeps his records. I've been planning this for years. I just needed—" She swallowed hard. "I needed to be strong enough first." Kain crossed the room in 3 strides, stopping just short of touching her. "You're not alone anymore. Whatever you're planning, we're in. We'll bring our whole pack if needed. Just tell us what you need." It was too much, too fast. 15 years of trusting no one. And now these strangers, these mates, were offering her everything she'd dreamed of in the darkest hours. "Why?" The word came out broken. "You don't know me. I've killed people. 73 people. I'm not good. I'm not—" "You survived." Kain's voice cut through her, spiraling. "You survived, and you're still planning to save others. That's not a monster. That's a warrior." Mira looked between them, these twin alphas who smelled like home and safety, and made a choice that terrified her more than any fight. She told them her plan. Every detail. The Blood Moon tournament bringing all of Victor's allies together. The weak points in security. The location of the children. Her hybrid prime abilities that she'd hidden for years. They listened without interruption. And when she finished, Kain spoke with absolute certainty. 3 days. We'll be ready. Our pack is already positioning outside the facility. When you give the signal, we move. But understand this, Kain added, his silver eyes intense. We're not leaving without you. You're ours now, and we protect what's ours. The possessiveness should have terrified her. Instead, it made something warm and dangerous bloom in her chest. Hope. Before she could respond, the door opened. The hour was up. As handlers moved to collect her, Kain caught her wrist gently, his thumb brushing her pulse point. The contact sent electricity through the incomplete mate bond. 3 days, he murmured. Be ready. Kain's voice was quieter but no less fierce. You're not alone anymore. Then they were pulling her away, back toward her cell. But everything had changed. The world had cracked open, and Mira couldn't shove it closed again. She had mates. She had allies. She had 3 days to pull off the impossible. In her cell that night, Mira didn't carve another tally mark. Instead, she pressed her hand to the stone wall and let herself feel something she'd thought dead. Hope tasted like winter storms and smelled like pine, and it was going to burn the pits to ash. The cage rattled as they wheeled Mira into the arena, and the crowd's roar hit like a physical wall of sound. She stood perfectly still behind silver bars, chains gleaming against her skin, while 42 other cages rolled in from different tunnels, champions, from Victor's facilities across 3 continents, all displayed like prized animals before the slaughter. The arena had been transformed. Torches blazed despite the afternoon sun, casting everything in flickering orange that made the bloodstains on the sand look fresh and wet. Banners hung from the stone walls bearing Victor's crest, a wolf's head impaled on a silver sword, subtle. In the luxury boxes circling the arena, supernatural elites lounged in cushioned seats, champagne glasses catching the light. Mira's eyes tracked methodically. Guard positions, exit tunnels, structural weak points, the location of every syndicate leader whose face she'd memorized from whispered conversations between handlers. Then her gaze found the twins, and the incomplete mate bond flared hot beneath her ribs. Kain and Kane sat among the monsters, perfectly composed in expensive suits that made them look like they belonged. But Mira felt their fury through the bond, a cold, controlled rage from Kain, a barely leashed violence from Kain. They were watching her cage with identical expressions of forced calm, and she knew without words that they wanted to tear this place apart right now. Not yet, she thought, hoping the bond carried intention if not actual words. Soon, Victor's voice boomed through the arena, magically amplified. "Welcome, honored guests, to the Blood Moon Tournament." The crowd applauded. Mira's jaw clenched. "For 3 glorious days, you'll witness the finest weapons from my facilities compete for ultimate glory. Today we begin with preliminary matches. Tomorrow, the survivors face increasingly difficult challenges. And on the final night, beneath the blood moon itself, our champions will face a test unlike any before." His smile was serpent cold as he gestured to a covered section of the arena. "But I'm getting ahead of myself. First, let the games begin." The cages opened simultaneously with the screech of metal on stone. Mira stepped onto the blood-soaked sand, barefoot and barely clothed. Silver chains removed now that she was in the arena proper. Around her, 42 other champions emerged, some confident, some terrified, all deadly. She'd been trained not to see them as people. Easier that way. But today, looking at a girl who couldn't be more than 16, Mira saw Sophie's face, saw every child Victor had forced her to kill. Her wolf stirred, and this time Mira didn't suppress it. "First match," Victor announced. "The Scarlet Fang versus Moscow's finest, Dmitri and Alexei. Brothers who've claimed 32 victories between them. Begin." 2 males peeled away from the crowd of champions, both massive and wolf-enhanced. Brothers, Victor. Always did have a sick sense of poetry. They circled her with the practiced coordination of wolves who'd fought together their whole lives. Mira tracked their movement, her hybrid prime abilities cataloging everything. Dmitri favored his right side, old injury, never fully healed. Alexei was faster but reckless, lunging before thinking. The crowd was chanting her name. Scarlet Fang. "Scarlet Fang!" Dmitri attacked first, a straightforward charge meant to test her defenses. Mira sidestepped, letting his momentum carry him past. Alexei came from behind, predictable, and she dropped low, sweeping his legs. He went down hard. The crowd roared approval. Mira could end this now, quick and brutal, the way she'd ended 73 fights before. But something made her hesitate. These brothers had been stolen too, trained too, forced into this same hell. Dmitri recovered and came at her again, and this time Mira met him head-on. Their collision sent sand spraying. He was strong, like an enhanced, strength that she felt through her bones when he landed. A hit to her ribs. Pain bloomed bright and sharp. Through the mate bond, she felt Kane's rage spike. Felt Kane's iron control keeping his brother in his seat. Mira absorbed the pain, let her hybrid prime gift pull strength from it, and moved. She was faster now, using speed stolen from a vampire champion 3 years ago. Her fist connected with Dimitri's jaw, snapping his head back. Before he could recover, she was on Alexei, using techniques borrowed from a dozen different fighting styles. The brothers tried to coordinate, tried to use their advantage of numbers. But Mira had fought coordinated teams before, had absorbed the tactical knowledge of a military strategist she'd killed at 19. She ended it in under 3 minutes. Not merciful, not cruel, just efficient. Both brothers lay unconscious in the sand, alive but defeated. The crowd's roar was deafening. They'd wanted death, but they'd settle for dominance. Victor's expression was pure satisfaction as he announced her victory. Handlers dragged the brothers away while Mira stood in the center of the arena, chest heaving, blood on her hands that wasn't entirely hers. Her eyes found the twins. Kain nodded once, almost imperceptible. Kain's smile was sharp with pride. Then she noticed something else. The guard standing behind Victor's box, his posture was wrong. Too relaxed, too aware, and his scent, faint but distinct beneath the smoke and blood, carried pine forests. Blackwood pack. They'd already infiltrated. Over the next 6 hours, Mira watched 17 champions die in the arena. Some fights were quick. Others were drawn-out spectacles designed to maximize suffering. The crowd's bloodlust grew with each death, their cheers becoming something primal and ugly. Between matches, she was kept in a holding cage where she could observe everything. She watched Kain and Kane move through the facility with the ease of welcomed guests, noting how guards mysteriously stepped away from certain corridors, how security cameras seemed to glitch at convenient moments. They were preparing, positioning their people, building toward the strike. When her second match was called, a solo fight against a female champion from the Berlin facility, Mira stepped back into the arena and felt the mate, bond pulse with shared determination. This fight was harder. The female was fast, enhanced with abilities Mira recognized, speed, agility, the kind of grace that came from years of brutal training. They moved through the sand like dancers, each strike precisely calculated. Mira won, but barely. And in the moment of victory, as the female fell, she whispered something that only Mira could hear. "Thank you." The weight of those words nearly broke her. Back in the recovery cell after her matches, Mira sat against cold stone and tried not to think about the gratitude in a dying woman's eyes, tried not to count how many more would die before this tournament ended. The door opened. A guard entered with food, rancid meat and stale bread, standard. But when he set the tray down, his movements were too careful, too deliberate. Mira's combat instincts flared. She was halfway to attacking when she caught his scent beneath the uniform and grime, pine and winter storms pack. The guard didn't speak, just placed the tray and turned to leave. But there, tucked beneath the meat, was a small piece of paper. Mira waited until the door closed before unfolding it with trembling fingers. Kane's handwriting was precise and controlled. "We found the children. Lower levels, West Wing. 73 captives total, youngest is 6. We can't leave them." Her heart, frozen for 15 years, cracked wide open. 73 children. The same number as her kills. Like the universe offering her a chance at balance. She had no pen, no ink. But she had claws and she had blood. Mira bit her palm until it bled, then wrote her response across the paper in red. "Second day, final match. When I signal you move, save the children first. Victor is mine." She moved to the door, listening. Footsteps approached, that same careful, deliberate rhythm. When the guard returned for the tray, she pressed the paper into his hand. Their eyes met for half a second. The guard was female, a beta with kind eyes that didn't belong in this place. She nodded once, understanding passing between them without words. Then she leaned in, close enough that her whisper barely stirred the air. "Your mates say to tell you that you're not alone anymore, and you never will be again." The door closed. Mira was left in darkness, clutching her bleeding palm, feeling something dangerous and foreign unfurling in her chest. Hope. It burned like wildfire and tasted like winter storms. Outside her cell, The first day of the Blood Moon tournament ended with 17 champions dead and the crowd howling for more. Victor stood in his luxury box, calculating profits and planning tomorrow's spectacles. None of them knew that beneath their feet an army was gathering. That in the West Wing lower levels, 73 children waited for rescue. That the Scarlet Fang had stopped being Victor's weapon and become something far more dangerous. A protector, a warrior, a mate with twin alphas who would burn this place to ash. Mira pressed her bleeding hand against the stone wall and smiled in the darkness. 2 more days. Then the real blood moon would rise, and it wouldn't be the champions who bled. It would be every monster who thought. Children were merchandise, and suffering was entertainment. The pits would burn, and from the ashes something new would rise. She just had to survive long enough to see it. Dawn broke over the pits with screaming. Mira jerked awake in her cell. Her enhanced senses, stolen from 73, dead champions immediately, identifying the source, female, young, terrified beyond reason. The guards came for all the remaining champions 15 minutes later, herding them through corridors with silver-tipped prods and barked commands. No food, no explanation. Just the march toward the arena as the screaming grew louder. When they emerged into the morning light, Mira understood. A girl hung suspended in the center of the arena. Some power through their connection. They were literally making her stronger. Not through commands or dominance, but through the simple act of existing as her mates. The handler pulled her around a corner, oblivious. But Mira understood now with crystal clarity. She wasn't fighting alone. Hadn't been alone since the moment the mate bond snapped into place. Her 4th match was announced as she entered the holding area. 3 opponents again. But these were Victor's elite. Champions who'd survived multiple tournaments. Who'd killed dozens. This was meant to be her breaking point. Instead, it became her declaration. Mira entered the arena and fought like the weapon she'd been forged to be, but wielding that violence for her own purpose now. She used every stolen ability, every absorbed skill, every fragment of power she'd gathered from 73 deaths. The fight was brutal and beautiful and over in 6 minutes. When she stood victorious, blood-soaked and magnificent, she felt the twins' pride burning through the bond like wildfire. The crowd was on their feet, screaming her name. Victor was calculating her value, already planning which wealthy alpha would pay the most. And somewhere in the facility's depths, Blackwood pack members moved through corridors disguised as servants and guards, positioning weapons and mapping escape routes. But Mira's enhanced hearing picked up something else. A conversation in Victor's private suite, 2 levels above the arena. The Blackwood twins. That was Dimitri. Victor's second in command. His voice sharp with suspicion. I know that name. They destroyed the Moscow operation last year. Killed Konstantin's brother. Silence. Then Victor's voice, dangerously soft. Are you certain? I've been digging all morning. They're not buyers. They're hunters. And they're here for you. Mira's blood turned to ice. The final match of day 2 was called. 3 champions against the Scarlet Fang, Victor's way of testing her. Absolute limits before the tournament's finale. Mira fought on instinct, her mind racing through scenarios. If Victor knew who the twins were, if he suspected infiltration, he'd move against them. Soon, maybe now. She won the match, but barely. Took hits that would have killed her if not for her hybrid prime healing. When she collapsed in the sand, vision blurring from blood loss and exhaustion, handlers moved in to drag her away. They pulled her past the VIP section, and through the haze of pain, Mira saw it. Victor leaning over the twins' box, Dimitri beside him pointing with aggressive certainty. Security moving into position. The twins sitting perfectly still, their expressions calm. But through the mate bond, Mira felt their cold fury. Victor's face was serpent cold as he gestured to his guards. Mira's training kicked in. She made the signal they'd established. 3 fingers against her thigh. The abort code. Execute immediately. Save yourselves. Kane's response came through hand signs so subtle only she would catch them. He knows. We're being taken to interrogation. Save the children. We'll handle Victor. No. Every instinct in Mira's body screamed no. But security was already surrounding the twins, and Kain was rising from his seat with his hands visible, non-threatening, letting himself be taken. They were surrendering, willingly walking into Victor's torture chambers to keep the plan alive. The mate bond stretched tight as they were escorted from the VIP area, deeper into the facility. Mira felt every step taking them further away. Felt the moment they entered the interrogation. Level, pain spiking through. The bond as silver chains locked around their wrists. The handlers dragged her into a recovery cell and locked the door. The moment she was alone, Mira's control shattered. The torture chamber was designed to break alphas. Silver chains bolted into stone. Wolfsbane pumped through ventilation. Walls carved with symbols meant to suppress wolf forms. Victor's handlers worked methodically, confident in their tools and their victims' helplessness. They'd made one fatal miscalculation. Kain and Kane Blackwood weren't just alphas. They were alpha kings. The first handler raised a silver whip, and that's when the twins stopped pretending. The air itself shattered with the force of their combined presence. Not alpha dominance, alpha king authority, that made every wolf within a mile. Radius drop to their knees and bare their throats in instinctive submission. The silver chains exploded off their wrists like they were made of paper. "You actually thought," Kain said softly, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of power, "that silver could hold us?" The handlers tried to run, tried to shift, tried to do anything except stand. Frozen as two ancient predators rose to their full height, their eyes blazing with power that made the torture chamber's lights flicker and die. Kane's smile was all teeth. "We've been waiting for you to show your hand, Victor. Thank you for gathering all your allies in one place." Through the facility, the pressure of their unleashed power rolled like an earthquake. In her cell 3 levels up, Mira felt it slam through the incomplete mate bond and gasped. This was their true strength. This was what Alpha Kings felt like when they stopped holding back. Her wolf, suppressed for 15 years, roared in recognition and answer. Her mates were calling, and her body responded. The hybrid prime abilities that had been gathering power from 73, death suddenly ignited, fueled by the Alpha King essence flowing through the mate bond. Mira's shift was explosive. Her hybrid form erupted, 7 feet of power and fury, and 15 years of caged rage, finally unleashed. The cell door didn't just break. It disintegrated. She emerged into a corridor filled with guards who took one look at her and fled. Smart choice. Through the mate bond, she felt her mates' location and their command rippling through the facility. "Now, all units, execute." The pits erupted into coordinated chaos. Blackwood warriors who'd been positioned around the facility for days dropped their disguises and moved. They emerged from shadows and storage rooms and ventilation shafts. 50 elite fighters who'd been waiting for their Alpha King's signal. Guards who'd tortured children found themselves facing wolves who showed no mercy. Handlers who'd wielded silver whips discovered what real predators looked like. Within minutes, every exit was secured, every escape route blocked. In the luxury suites, corrupt alphas who'd been drinking and gambling on children's deaths suddenly found themselves surrounded. Some tried to fight. Most simply collapsed under the weight of Alpha King, authority broadcasting through the facility like a tidal wave. Victor had been in his private office, celebrating the twins' capture, with Dimitri and his inner circle, 12 wealthy sponsors, who funded the pits and 3 other facilities across Europe. They'd been toasting their continued success when the building shook. "What was that?" Dimitri demanded. Victor's face had gone ashen. "That was a mistake." "My mistake." The door exploded inward. Kain and Kane stepped through, and the temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees from the cold fury radiating off them. "Kain and Kane Blackwood," Victor whispered, all color draining from his face. "The Alpha Kings of the Northern Territories." "Finally," Kain said with dark satisfaction. "You understand what you've been playing with." Victor's elite guards, the 12 strongest fighters he'd kept for personal protection, moved to defend their master. They were enhanced with stolen abilities, trained in lethal combat, absolutely confident in their strength. They lasted 37 seconds. The twins moved with devastating synchronization. Each movement precise and brutal. No wasted energy. No hesitation, just efficient violence that left bodies on the floor and the rest of Victor's inner circle pressed against the walls in terror. Dmitri tried to shift, tried to use his own alpha dominance. It died in his throat the moment Kain's eyes met his, silver, blazing with power, that made it clear exactly how far beneath alpha kings he truly was. "Chain them," Kain commanded. Blackwood warriors flooded in, silver chains in hand. Victor and his inner circle. "They'll face the Supernatural Council." "The others?" Kain asked, his tone suggesting he already knew the answer. "Those who surrendered are detained. Those who fought," Kain's expression was cold, "are no longer a concern." Mira arrived as they were securing Victor and his sponsors. She moved through the doorway in her hybrid form, magnificent and terrifying, blood on her claws from guards who'd been foolish enough to try stopping her. The moment she entered, the mate bond flared so brightly that everyone in the room felt it. The twins' heads snapped toward her, and their expressions transformed from cold fury to fierce pride and possessive love. "Mira," Kain breathed. She shifted back to human form, standing naked and powerful and utterly unashamed before them. Kain quickly removed her suit, jacket to cover her, which was long, enough to reach her knees. "The children?" Mira asked. "Safe," Kain assured her. "Our warriors have them. All 73, extracted and heading to the surface now. The other champions? Being gathered. Any who wish asylum will have it." Mira's eyes finally landed on Victor, chained and kneeling, looking at her with dawning horror as he realized exactly who and what she'd become. "You," he whispered. "You were supposed to be my greatest creation, my perfect weapon." Mira crossed the room in 3 strides and crouched before him, her voice soft and absolutely lethal. "You created nothing. You stole a child and tried to break her, but I survived. I got stronger. And now I'm exactly what you feared most, free, powerful, and standing beside alpha kings who will burn your empire to ash." She stood, turning to her mates. "I want to see the children. Make sure they're really safe." "Of course." Kain moved to her side, and Kain flanked her other side. The 3 of them left together, the mate bond humming with shared purpose and power. Behind them, Victor knelt in chains, his world crumbling. The Blackwood warriors would deliver him and his sponsors to the Supernatural Council for trial. The corrupt alphas who'd funded his operations would face judgment. The handlers and guards who'd participated would answer for their crimes, and called the Scarlet Fang was gone. In her place stood a Luna who'd chosen love over vengeance, protection over destruction, and healing over hate. A queen who'd proven that the broken could become unbreakable when given the right reasons to rise. "No more cages," she whispered. "Never again," Kain promised against her temple. "Only freedom," Kain added, his arms tightening. "Only family. Only love." And in the forest below, 73 children laughed and played under open sky, protected by a Luna who understood their pain and would spend her life ensuring no other child suffered the same fate. The pits were ash. Victor and his allies faced justice, and the Blackwood pack had gained a queen whose strength came not from violence but from surviving it and choosing something better. The Scarlet Fang had become Luna Mira Blackwood, mate to Alpha Kings, protector of the innocent, and the most powerful female in supernatural history.